Under the quiet night sky, close your eyes and imagine you're lying on a soft blanket of grass, with countless stars shimmering above you. If you're still tossing and turning, or simply hoping to find something that both soothes you and feeds your curiosity, then this journey is meant just for you. In this video, we'll retell the story of the solar system as a kind of scientific fairy tale, soft, unhurried, yet filled with wonder. Once upon a time, from a hazy cloud of dust and gas drifting through space, the sun and its planets slowly came into being, and tonight, you'll travel back through that very journey. From the radiant star at the system's heart to the frozen worlds on its distant edge, from mysterious moons to quiet asteroids drifting in the dark, everything will unfold through a gentle narration, guiding you through every little corner of the cosmos without pulling you out of your calm, restful state. So now, let your shoulders drop, take a deep breath in, and get ready to set off, because a dream among the stars is quietly opening before you. Imagine you're drifting weightlessly through space, no gravity holding you down, no sound to disturb you. Everything around you is pure, boundless quiet, soft as a breath. And right now, before we begin our long journey across the solar system, I want you to take a slow, gentle look at the bigger picture, the place we ourselves occupy in the universe. Our solar system doesn't float alone. It isn't wandering aimlessly. It sits on a very small, very delicate, yet very special branch of the Milky Way called the Orion Spur, also known as the Orion Armlet, a minor spur tucked between two much larger arms, Sagittarius and Perseus. If the Milky Way were a vast, glowing city, then the Orion Spur would be a peaceful neighborhood on the quiet outskirts, where we have a small, tranquil home. That home is the solar system. Our Milky Way is so enormous that even light, the fastest thing in the universe, needs over 100,000 years to cross its diameter. And within this immense sea of stars, the solar system is no more than a tiny speck of dust. But even so, it holds a story of its own, beautiful, long, and ancient, like an old song drifting through the dark of space. And tonight, as you settle in and prepare to fall asleep, we'll tell that story again, slowly, softly, like turning the pages of a weathered book. About 4.5 billion years ago, or more precisely 4,568 billion years ago, this very region of space was completely different. There was no sun, no Earth, no Saturn with its breathtaking rings, no planets at all. Only a massive cloud of gas and dust, cold, dim, and almost motionless in the dark. Scientists call it the solar nebula. Let your mind paint that image. A vast cloud hanging in space, stretching across thousands of light years, drifting quietly like the universe's own breath. The dust within it was incredibly fine, millions of times smaller than a strand of your hair. The gas was so cold that every motion happened slowly, almost lazily. It was as if the entire cloud were asleep. But then, far away, something happened. A star exploded. A supernova, brighter than an entire galaxy for a brief moment, sent powerful shock waves racing through space. Those waves traveled far, passing through darkness, crossing millions of empty miles, until they finally brushed against the sleeping cloud of dust. Think of a perfectly still lake. Then imagine a tiny pebble falling in. Ripples spread outward. That's exactly how the supernova's shockwaves touched the solar nebula. The cloud began to move, to swirl, to pull inward. Not quickly, not violently, but steadily, like someone gently tugging on a blanket. As it contracted, gravity grew stronger, pulling it in further. And right at its center, the temperature rose, pressure built, and a bright, glowing region appeared. The first child of the solar system, the newborn sun. Around that infant sun stretched a wide, spinning disk made of dust and gas, continuing to collide, cling together, and grow. Tiny dust grains stuck to one another, forming small rocks. Those rocks grew into boulders the size of hills. They crashed, merged, and grew again. And from that slow chaos, the planets were born. If these images feel like they're drifting slowly through your mind, that's exactly how it should be. This process didn't unfold in days or years. It took tens of millions of years. But within that slowness lies a strange kind of beauty, the patience of the universe, the calm persistence of time. And when everything finally settled, when the sun burned bright at the center, 8 planets found their places. The solar system began its great orbit, its long journey around the center of the Milky Way. Now imagine something fascinating. The solar system is not still. It isn't hanging motionless in space. It is speeding through the galaxy at about 515,000 miles per hour, around 829,000 kilometers per hour. A staggering speed for us, yet completely gentle from the perspective of the cosmos, like sitting on a colossal ship gliding across a dark, endless sea, without a tremor, without a sound. At that speed, the solar system takes about 230 million years to complete a single orbit around the Milky Way. That means that from the moment dinosaurs appeared to the moment they vanished, the solar system still hadn't made it even once around the galaxy. And this galaxy has spun countless times since the universe began. When you think about that, you might feel a bit small. But at the same time, there's a comfort in it, like being carried along by a vast current, needing nothing from you but to simply drift. Everything has followed this rhythm for billions of years. Everything will continue to do so. And you are quietly part of that peaceful motion. Let your body relax a little more now. Your shoulders soften. Your breath deepens. Imagine you're standing aboard a great vessel gliding through the Milky Way's darkness. No wind, no sound, only the light of distant stars. And in the midst of that starlight, the solar system, your home, continues its gentle orbit around the galaxy's center, carrying Earth with it, carrying the oceans, the forests, and carrying you. Its origin story isn't just dry history. It's a reminder that everything begins from tiny fragments, from things that seem chaotic and uncertain. But with time, with the universe's quiet patience, everything finds its shape, its balance, its harmony. Now let your eyes grow a little heavier. Take one more slow breath and get ready to move into the next chapter of our journey, where we'll drift closer to the heart of the system, to the radiant star that holds everything in its orbit. As we close the chapter on the solar system's formation, let your mind drift slowly toward the center of that ancient disk of dust, toward the place where the very first light was born. After millions of years of collapsing, gathering, and igniting, from the stillness of a primordial cloud, a star emerged. And that star is the sun. Now, as your journey continues, take a deep breath. Let your shoulders soften and step with me, gently, into the radiant heart of the solar system, where all life we know has its beginning. Imagine you're standing at a safe distance, floating in open space, gazing at the sun as if looking at a silent, burning lantern. You don't feel its heat, but you know that before you lies a massive sphere of glowing plasma, brilliant, heavy beyond comprehension. It contains 99% of all the mass in the entire solar system, nearly everything, every ounce of matter and weight and strength, held inside this single star. With that in mind, you can picture the planets as tiny grains of dust circling around a quiet, powerful giant. The Sun is not a large star by cosmic standards. In truth, it's just an average G-type star. But to us, it holds an importance no other object could ever replace. Without the Sun, there would be no light, no warmth, and no life on Earth. It is a lighthouse, a shared heart, an anchor keeping every planet in its path. Think of it as an endless point of light, a colossal heartbeat pulsing slowly and steadily in the infinite dark of the universe. If you could touch the Sun's surface, you would feel a temperature of about 5,600 degrees, hotter than anything humans have ever created on Earth. But that surface is only the outermost skin. Deep inside, at the core where pressure reaches unimaginable levels, temperatures rise to nearly 15 million graus Celsius. It is within this immense furnace that nuclear fusion takes place, transforming tiny light hydrogen atoms into helium and releasing an enormous amount of energy. The sunlight you see every day, the light streaming through your bedroom window, the light that keeps every living thing on Earth alive, began in that scorching core. It traveled for thousands, even millions of years just to reach the surface, and then needed only 8 minutes more to cross space and reach your eyes. Imagine that. The light touching your face has survived a journey longer than anything you could ever dream of. And yet, when it arrives, it feels as soft as air. From far away, the Sun's surface doesn't look calm at all. It shifts and swirls like a sea of fire. Hot plasma rises and sinks in a slow, rhythmic dance, like the star's own breathing. Sometimes, small, dark spots appear, sunspots where the temperature is slightly cooler. And sometimes, enormous arcs of fire leap upward, stretching hundreds of thousands of kilometers, solar flares and bursts of charged particles. Yet all this chaos is wrapped in a beauty that can't quite be put into words. A natural balance held together by the quiet laws of cosmic physics. Picture yourself drifting in orbit, watching the Sun rotate ever so slowly, each full turn taking about 27 days. Even though it spins, you can barely sense that motion. The Sun is too soft, too bright, too different from the solid planets we know. It's like watching a delicate sphere of fire, where every movement is subtle, graceful, almost mist-like. And the strangest truth of all is this: the Sun appears peaceful, so silent you can't hear a thing. Yet inside it, energy is produced so violently that if you were anywhere near it, everything would be destroyed in an instant. A world both gentle and fierce, though we are lucky to live far enough away to receive only its gifts, its light, its warmth, its life. You can imagine Earth as a small child being held in the Sun's gentle glow, not too close to burn, not too far to freeze. That perfect distance, 150 million kilometers, is the reason life could arise at all. And for that, the Sun is not just a star. It is a guardian, a teacher, an ancient parent to every planet in the system. When you see the Sun this way, you begin to notice a soft truth. Everything in nature relies on something else. Without the Sun, there is no Earth. Without Earth, no oceans. Without oceans, no life. Everything is connected like a long, flowing melody, with the Sun as the first note, the brightest one. Now, in the stillness of the night, you can almost feel the Sun's warmth, even though it's far below the horizon. You can imagine its light drifting through space, making its way towards you, just as these quiet words guide you closer to sleep. Let your breath slow down now. Feel your chest rise and fall with the same steady rhythm as a star breathing in light. As sunlight spreads outward from the blazing furnace at the center, it softens, stretching across the vast emptiness like a warm blanket draped over space. That light continues its journey, traveling through millions of empty kilometers, and begins to touch the first worlds drifting quietly around their star. If you let your mind drift with that beam of light, you'll start to see the planets rising from the darkness, each with its own texture, its own story, yet all circling within the sun's gentle embrace. Closest to the sun, the smallest worlds appear first. They are like heated stones, baked by the star's fierce glow, solid, steady, and often alone. These rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are made mostly of heavy materials, iron, rock, and minerals forged through ancient collisions. As sunlight sweeps across them, they emerge as familiar, almost tangible places, worlds where you can imagine standing on a surface, feeling the firmness beneath your feet. Let's begin slowly with Mercury, the smallest planet and the one nearest to the sun. It glides around its orbit like a scorching pebble, with no atmosphere to hold on to heat, no protective layer to soften the cold as night falls. Its surface is nothing but the scars of time, frozen impact craters so silent, you can almost imagine no sound has ever existed there. From Mercury, the light stretches onward to Venus, a radiant world glowing in thick golden clouds. But beneath that beauty lies a place so hot that no metal on Earth could survive its surface. Venus is a lesson in the fragility of balance, a reminder that sunlight can nurture, but it can also burn if a planet is too close, too sealed in, or too suffocated by its own atmosphere. Then Earth appears in the drifting light, a soft blue halo, like a jewel in the darkness. Somehow, this planet found the perfect distance, not too hot, not too cold, just right for liquid water to exist and life to blossom. As the light continues on, it reaches Mars, a cold and dusty red world, dry as a desert, yet etched with relics of ancient rivers that once flowed across its surface. Each of these terrestrial planets is like one of the first pages in the solar system's story, pages closest to the sun's glow, where heavy matter condensed into small, strong, resilient worlds. You might picture these 4 rocky planets as 4 stones placed near a great fire, warmed more intensely than anything farther away. They are small, with few moons and weaker gravity, yet they hold bold, familiar features that humans can easily imagine. They were shaped from materials that survived the hottest region of the protoplanetary disk, where only heavy elements could remain and gather. But as sunlight leaves these solid worlds behind and travels farther outward, you begin to see a transformation. The outer planets are no longer stone-like. They are enormous, so large that dozens of Earths could fit inside them. They have no solid surfaces to stand on, no ground underfoot, only vast oceans of gas, deep enough to swallow light the moment it touches them. The first of this group is Jupiter, the magnificent giant with swirling cloud bands and the great red spot, an enormous storm that has been raging for centuries. Behind it is Saturn, adorned with slender, icy rings as delicate as frozen jewelry, beautiful enough to steal the breath of anyone who sees them. These are the gas giants, worlds made not of rock or metal, but of light elements like hydrogen and helium, rolling and folding like endless layers of cloud. Farther still, where sunlight is no more than a faint whisper, lie 2 icy giants, Uranus and Neptune. They are so cold that methane freezes, tinting them with their deep blue shades. These worlds are no longer pure gas, but mixtures of ice, liquids, and atmosphere, like vast, shadowed oceans swirling in frigid darkness. They drift quietly along the solar system's dim edge, where sunlight takes hours to arrive and warmth is only a fading memory. Imagine yourself floating there, gazing at these four immense planets like four colossal spheres spinning in a slow cosmic dance. They move so gently that it's hard to see any change at all. Yet deep inside their swirling layers, countless currents, winds, and storms are constantly unfolding. They are worlds filled with motion, but from a distance, they appear calm, almost serene. The universe has its own way of arranging things. Small, dense, rocky planets sit close to the light. Enormous, gaseous, lightweight planets rest farther away, as if an unseen hand divided them into two families, each with its own character. And when you look at this arrangement with a slow breath, you might sense that the universe isn't as chaotic as it seems. Even in vast emptiness, everything has its place. And as the sunlight continues its journey, it will travel even farther still, touching places humanity is only beginning to understand. But before we go there, let your mind rest for a moment on this image. 8 planets, 4 small and 4 large, 4 solid and 4 soft, all circling the sun like notes in an endless symphony. Let your breath grow lighter now. Let your eyes begin to sink into the calm. And let the next part of the story come to you like a gentle breeze drifting across quiet space. As the sun's softened light drifts farther outward, crossing the invisible boundary between the rocky worlds and the giants beyond, it circles back once more to touch the smallest, most modest, yet most mysterious planet among its siblings. It's as if the light wants to bring you closer, to let you study a tiny stone warmed by the star, where everything unfolds slowly, quietly, so still you can almost hear the heartbeat of solitude. And there, orbiting very close to the sun, lies a world often overlooked at first glance, but full of surprises when you look again. Mercury. Let your mind picture yourself drifting toward this tiny planet, only about 1/3 the diameter of Earth. Mercury has no thick atmosphere for protection, no soft clouds, no vivid colors. It appears as a silvery gray stone, heated by the sun, until its surface blazes red during the day, then plunging to hundreds of degrees below zero at night. Nothing holds the warmth in. No air gently redistributes the temperature. Everything is an extreme contrast of heat and cold, light and darkness, short and long, an entire world forced to face the nearby star without a single layer of defense. Mercury moves around the sun in an extremely tight orbit, giving it very brief years. A full year there lasts only 88 Earth days. Imagine standing on its surface watching the sun rise. But the sun wouldn't simply rise and set the way it does on Earth. On Mercury, the sun can rise, then reverse direction, then rise again before finally setting. Everything unfolds so slowly that time itself seems stretched, twisted, making each day on Mercury feel strange and unpredictable. As you watch this tiny world drift through space, you can sense how lightweight it truly is. Small, with no moons, it resembles a solitary grain of sand orbiting close to a giant flame. But small does not mean simple. Hidden beneath Mercury's surface is a structure that astonishes scientists, a massive iron core occupying most of the planet's interior. In fact, its core is so large that people often compare it to holding a heavy metal ball wrapped in an unbelievably thin shell of rock. It is this unusually oversized iron core that makes Mercury the second densest rocky planet in the solar system, second only to Earth. This means that despite its size, Mercury is remarkably dense, as if gravity compressed all the heavy materials inward, leaving only a fragile crust around it. You might imagine that if you could hold Mercury in your hand, it would feel unexpectedly heavy, like a tightly packed metal marble. But the strangest mystery of Mercury isn't its size or its orbit. It lies in something scientists discovered when the Messenger spacecraft flew past it. Data showed that Mercury's surface contains volatile elements like potassium and sulfur, materials that, according to theory, should have evaporated long ago during Mercury's formation in the scorching region so close to the Sun. And yet, they remain, intact and inexplicably preserved. It's like placing an ice cube beside a blazing candle, expecting it to melt instantly, and somehow finding it still perfectly solid. That discovery turned Mercury into a puzzle that scientists still haven't fully solved. It is proof that the universe always keeps its exceptions, its secrets that refuse to follow simple rules. As you continue floating above Mercury's surface, you'll see the scars of billions of years of impacts. Wide craters, deep depressions, patches of land torn open. There is no wind, no rain, nothing to erase those marks. Mercury's surface is like an ancient diary, preserved since the earliest era, with no pages removed and no lines faded. Here, with no atmosphere, if you stood under the sun, you would see it 3 times larger than it appears from Earth. Its light would fall on you so fiercely that everything around you would seem to shimmer from heat. But if you walked to the other side of the planet, just half a world away, you would be surrounded by freezing darkness and a sky so black that nothing reflects any light at all. Heat and cold, brightness and shadow, always side by side on this tiny world. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about Mercury is its silence. No air, no wind, no sound of any kind. If you placed your feet on its surface, you would feel as though time had stopped completely. A place without haste or noise, without motion fast enough to disturb your rest. Everything is so gentle, so still, that you could let your mind drift and feel that solitude as a kind of lullaby whispered by the universe. And as Mercury slowly drifts away behind you, fading from view on your journey, you begin to feel something clearly. Even the smallest, quietest planet in the solar system carries a story of its own, a story woven from fire, metal, and time. As your eyes soften and your breath eases, let the sun's light guide you toward the next world, one with a completely different character, softer, denser, and mysterious in its own way. As the sunlight leaves the small, barren world it just passed, it continues drifting farther outward, toward a place far more radiant and mysterious. Each layer of light glides gently like a warm breath, and little by little, another planet emerges. Not cold and silent like Mercury, not bare and exposed, but wrapped in a thick, milky veil of clouds. From a distance, this world looks strangely beautiful, bright, soft, almost like a glowing pearl floating in space. This is Venus, Earth's enigmatic sister. People often call Venus the twin planet of Earth. The two worlds are almost the same size, similar in mass, and both are rocky planets. Seen from afar, you might imagine that Venus could be a place welcoming to life, perhaps even gentle. But the closer you approach, the more you realize the truth is entirely different. Beneath that dreamy, cloud-soft glow lies a heat so intense, it borders on unimaginable. Picture yourself drifting downward, slowly sinking through the thick cloud layers that blanket the planet. These clouds are nothing like Earth's soft white ones. They are made of sulfuric acid, dense, harsh, and toxic, floating in a heavy, choking atmosphere. Sunlight passing through them scatters into a deep golden glow, casting the whole sky in a shimmering but oppressive light, like a torch shining through thick fog. And when the clouds part, you finally see the surface of Venus, a place so hot it could melt lead or zinc, with average temperatures reaching 867 degrees Celsius, 464 degrees Celsius. Hotter than any other planet in the solar system, hotter even than the sunlit regions of Mercury. It seems impossible, yet the planet's thick, smothering atmosphere is exactly what traps the heat so relentlessly. Carbon dioxide makes up 90–95% of that atmosphere, and it is so dense that the surface pressure is about 92 times that of Earth. If you stood there, supposing you could survive the heat, you would feel a crushing weight pressing down on you, as though you were standing on the floor of a deep ocean. The entire planet is like a colossal furnace, holding in every bit of warmth, letting no infrared energy escape. This is the classic example of a runaway greenhouse effect, a world where greenhouse gases became so overwhelming that the temperature kept rising and rising, never again falling. Imagine the contrast between these twin worlds. Earth, cool and open, breathable and blue. Venus, trapped in a suffocating spiral of heat with no exit. When you see that stark difference, you can feel the fragile balance of climate, like a thin breath between life and death for a planet. It isn't just the climate that makes Venus so strange. Its rotation is peculiar too. Venus spins backward compared to most planets in the solar system. If Earth rotates like a wheel rolling forward, Venus turns in reverse, like someone gently pulling it backward. Because of this, if you stood on Venus's surface, the sun would rise in the west and set in the east, the exact opposite of what we know. But even stranger is its speed. Venus rotates incredibly slowly. One day on Venus, that is, one full spin on its axis, is longer than its entire year, the time it takes to orbit the sun. This means that if you lived on Venus, you would experience days so long they feel almost eternal. The sky would never really change color. There would be no bright morning, no cool night. Only a near motionless state of dim gold and suffocating heat. If you imagine yourself hovering just above the surface, you'd notice there are no soft winds, no rivers, no seas, no trace of green, only blazing rock, vast volcanic plains, and landscapes stained in deep amber tones by the thick atmosphere. And yet, within that harshness is a haunting kind of beauty. Like a painting done entirely in warm, heavy strokes, intense and unmoving in a way that almost feels sacred. Probes that have tried to land on Venus survived only minutes before being destroyed by the crushing heat and pressure. But the rare images they sent back reveal a world covered in scattered boulders, basaltic plateaus, and remnants of ancient volcanic activity. As though this planet once lived through an era of great chaos, then slowly cooled, but never found the soft equilibrium that Earth achieved. From above, you can feel the loneliness of Venus. It looks like a beautiful home with its windows covered, keeping its interior hidden from view. Its thick clouds act like heavy curtains, trapping every bit of heat, blocking every glimpse inward, holding everything beneath in a tight, burning embrace. And yet, within that isolation, Venus whispers a story that any science lover can feel. A story about the fragility of nature, about how a planet can become heaven or hell depending on the air wrapped around it. A story that makes you pause, breathe more slowly, and appreciate the delicate balance, not just in the cosmos, but in your own life. And as you drift away from this blazing pearl, watching it fade behind its golden veil, Let a gentle feeling settle in your mind. Every planet wears a different face, and each one has its own lessons to share, spoken softly in the universe's quiet voice. Then the tender sunlight will guide you onward to another world, more familiar, cooler, greener, and full of life, where the story grows closer to your heart. As you drift away from the thick golden clouds of Venus, the sunlight seems to grow lighter, more airy, no longer trapped by layers of heavy atmosphere. Space feels clearer, calmer, as though after passing through a scorching land, you're stepping into a sky where you can finally breathe deeply again. The light carries you onward, and slowly, in the infinite black, a faint blue glow appears in the distance, small, yet shining unmistakably like an emerald suspended in space. This is the world you know best. But tonight, you will look at it through the eyes of a traveler wandering among the stars. Earth appears not as the place where you live your daily life, but as a living being, breathing, turning, holding billions of tiny stories. If you let your mind drift gently around it, you'll see pale continents, deep blue oceans, and white swirling clouds stretching like soft silk ribbons pulled across the atmosphere. Everything blends together like a watercolor painting, always in motion, always harmonious. But what truly sets Earth apart isn't its colors. In this vast solar system, there are many beautiful places, planets tinted turquoise, worlds covered in crystalline ice. What makes Earth unique is life, the only place we know where it exists, from microscopic creatures to towering forests to beings capable of thought, like you. All of it survives because of a delicate balance, a chain of cosmic luck, and a protective, invisible shield guarding the planet from the dangers of space. That shield is Earth's magnetic field, a vast shell of energy surrounding the planet like a giant suit of armor. If you imagine Earth as a small fireball with a rotating metal heart, you can picture deep inside the planet a layer of liquid iron constantly churning. These motions create strong electric currents, and from them arises the magnetic field, an invisible dome that shields the surface from dangerous particles streaming from the sun. The solar wind isn't wind as you know it. It's a stream of charged particles constantly blown outward by the sun. Without the magnetic field, these particles would strip Earth's atmosphere away and erase the conditions that allow life. But thanks to that shield, most of the solar wind is deflected, bending in elegant arcs that glide along the magnetosphere like water sliding off a rooftop. A small portion enters at the poles, painting the sky with shimmering lights, auroras, curtains of glowing color dancing through the night. Watching Earth turn slowly beneath this protective veil, you can feel a sense of peace. Not because there are no threats, but because this planet is wrapped just right, like a child tucked under a warm blanket as it sleeps. But Earth's story isn't only about its magnetic shield. It carries a greater mystery, the origin of its water. Water, so familiar to us, is a cosmic rarity, and the question of how Earth ended up with such vast oceans remains a puzzle studied for decades. Some theories suggest Earth was once too hot to hold liquid water. Its young surface was a glowing ocean of magma. Any water molecule would have vaporized instantly. Over time, as the planet cooled, water may have arrived from icy objects in space, comets and water-rich asteroids. Each collision, big or small, delivered small amounts of water, adding drop by drop to the oceans we know today. Imagine chunks of ice falling from distant corners of the solar system onto a young, scorching Earth, leaving behind tiny traces of water, slowly, patiently, as though the universe were carefully creating the most precious liquid we know. And then there is another story, softer yet powerful, the story of the moon itself. When you look at the moon from Earth, it seems gentle, glowing quietly in the night. But its origin was anything but calm. According to the giant impact hypothesis, a Mars-sized planet named Theia collided with early Earth billions of years ago. The impact was so violent that rock and metal were flung into orbit, where they slowly gathered and fused into the moon we see today. The miracle is that the moon helped Earth stabilize its rotation, keeping its climate from swinging wildly. Without the moon, Earth might have wobbled unpredictably. No seasons, no long-term stability, no rich, diverse life as we have now. In a very real way, the moon is a silent companion who has helped life flourish. When you watch Earth from afar, spinning in sunlight, guarded by its magnetic shield, holding oceans delivered by ancient ice and accompanied by a quiet moon, you might feel a soft warmth rising in your mind. Gratitude. A planet incredibly lucky, beautifully balanced, perfectly tuned for life. Let your breath slow just a little. Let your body grow lighter, as if you're drifting alongside Earth through space, surrounded by comforting darkness and soft golden light. And as the blue planet gently recedes into the distance, the sun's glow will carry you onward, toward another world. Redder, colder, etched with traces of water long gone. A world once hoped to be the neighbor that might hold life, still keeping secrets humanity has yet to uncover. As the blue planet slowly slips behind you, rotating gently in the sun's soft glow, your gaze begins to drift toward a small red point shimmering in the distance. Earth's light fades, and in the thin darkness of space, the next world appears like a deep crimson stone, lonely yet full of secrets. Slowly now, let your mind float closer. Let that red glow expand until it becomes an entire planet, waiting to share its story. This is a colder place, a drier place, a quieter place, but it carries the scars of an era when water once flowed across its surface. A world that feels both foreign and strangely familiar, like an old memory seen in a dream. Mars. From the very first glance, Mars leaves a strong impression with its iconic red color. The shade of iron dust oxidized over billions of years. It has long been called the Red Planet, a name simple yet evocative enough to spark the curiosity of explorers across generations. As you drift closer to its surface, you'll see that red dust covering everything. Valleys, plateaus, stones, and even mountains so immense that Earth holds no equal to them. Among these wonders stands one name above all, Olympus Mons. This is not only the largest volcano on Mars, it's the largest volcano in the entire solar system. 3 times the height of Everest, Olympus Mons rises like an ancient Titan, its gentle slopes stretching hundreds of kilometers. If you stood at its base, you wouldn't even see its summit. The curvature of the planet would hide it from view. It would feel as though you stood at the foot of a colossal stone wall, one your eyes could never fully measure. But the true magic of Mars lies in what it used to be. Around 3.7 billion years ago, this planet wasn't as barren as you see it today. Probes have found traces of ancient riverbeds, valleys carved by flowing water, and minerals that could only form in liquid water. Vast oceans once existed on the surface, and in those primordial seas, simple life may have emerged. When you picture that, you can almost feel Mars as a world that once breathed, a world where water trickled and pooled, where a thick atmosphere once wrapped the planet in warmth. So what changed? Why did a world that once had water become the frozen red desert it is now? The answer lies within its structure. Mars is smaller than Earth, too small to hold onto heat in its core for long. As the core cooled, the magnetic field, the protective shield that guards the atmosphere, disappeared. Without that shield, the solar wind slowly stripped away the fragile atmosphere over millions of years. Like mist blown off a lake by a steady breeze, Mars's protective air was peeled away bit by bit, until only the thin atmosphere we see today remained. And once the atmosphere vanished, surface water could no longer survive. It evaporated or froze deep underground. The oceans faded, rivers dried, valleys became silent evidence of a past long gone. Mars transformed into a cold, barren world, one where nighttime temperatures can fall below 80 degrees, where winds are gentle but constant, and where dust settles everywhere like a quiet blanket. Within this stillness lies a remarkable phenomenon found only on Mars: global dust storms. Unlike Earth's desert storms, Martian dust storms can grow until they envelop the entire planet. Imagine watching Mars from orbit and, over a few weeks, seeing its familiar red hue vanish beneath a pale, hazy yellow. Dust is lifted by sunlight, warming the surface, creating weak but persistent winds that gradually spread across the globe. The surface becomes blurry, dreamlike, as though the entire planet has slipped into a soft, dusty fog. This quietness, paired with the drifting dust, gives Mars a uniquely haunting beauty. It isn't as violent as Venus. It isn't as silent as Mercury. It's like a landscape of memory, empty, wide, but marked with traces of a time when life might have flickered somewhere. If you listen long enough, you may feel as though the planet is trying to tell a forgotten story, a story of water, of winds, and of ancient hope. Beneath the Martian surface, scientists believe pockets of liquid water still exist, kept from freezing by salt and pressure. In that cold darkness, simple organisms might still survive. Not large creatures, but tiny, patient microbes. If such life exists, it could be the key to answering whether life is common throughout the universe. As your mind glides over the dusty surface, you can feel Mars's dual nature, barren yet poetic, icy yet hopeful. Mars is like a journal with half its pages torn out, leaving behind final chapters filled with questions and mysteries. It's this mixture of emptiness and possibility that makes the planet so quietly captivating. As the red world slowly shrinks in your view, the sun's gentle pull guides you onward, soft and unhurried. Ahead of you, a region filled with drifting rocks and shimmering orbits begins to appear, a new boundary of the solar system, where ancient remnants from its formation still float silently in the deep, dark void. Your journey moves forward again, slowly, peacefully, guided by the universe's steady breath. As the red world shrinks quietly behind you, the sun's light continues to guide you farther outward, like a gentle golden stream carving a path through the cold emptiness. Mars, with its traces of ancient water and soft, drifting dust storms, slowly fades into shadow. Between the red planet and the next region lies a space more sparse, more hollow, like entering a vast hallway the universe intentionally left behind. There are no deep red plains, no towering mountains, no swirling dust storms, only rocks, small ones, large ones, floating in space like torn pages scattered from the earliest chapters of the solar system's book. This is where the light brings you now, a transition zone between planets, a place devoid of life, but holding key clues to the history of the entire solar system. Not a planet, but impossible to leave out of the cosmic story. A boundless world made of millions of drifting stones. This is the asteroid belt. If you let your mind drift slowly through this region, you'll notice that these rocks aren't floating in wild chaos. They follow soft, graceful orbits around the sun, like tiny motes of light sketching faint arcs in space. The asteroid belt lies between Mars and Jupiter, like a river of stone separating the inner rocky worlds from the outer gas giants. But it isn't a wall or a barrier. It feels more like a vast field where leftover pieces from the solar system's birth still rest, never able to grow large enough to become a true planet. In the earliest days of the solar system, when the sun first flared to life and dust and rock were clumping into larger bodies, this region tried to form a planet. But then Jupiter emerged, with a gravitational pull so vast and powerful that it disrupted everything nearby. Rocks that were beginning to merge were stretched apart, flung out of stable orbits, smashed, shattered. Instead of a planet, millions of fragments remained, drifting like the broken bones of a world that never fully formed. The asteroid belt is the living memory of that unborn planet. Among the objects here, one name stands out: Ceres, the largest body in the belt. Only about 940 kilometers wide, Ceres is still big enough to collapse into a spherical shape, making it a dwarf planet. Seen from a distance, you'd notice its pale gray surface dotted with bright patches, perhaps salt or ice reflecting sunlight softly. Ceres drifts like a calm, rounded pearl in a field of rubble, floating quietly in the dark, like a solitary period at the end of a sentence that was never completed. But the asteroid belt isn't just ancient beauty. It also carries the echoes of catastrophic impacts that changed Earth's history forever. If you listen deeply, imagine hard enough, you might feel the tremors of collisions long past, moments when these drifting stones slipped from their orbits and fell toward Earth. These events are not imaginary. One of them caused the greatest extinction the planet ever faced. Around 65 million years ago, an asteroid from this region, or from a nearby orbit, plunged into Earth. The impact carved out the Chicxulub crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, a wound more than 150 kilometers wide, powerful enough to shake the entire planet. It vaporized oceans, sent dust billowing into the atmosphere, blocked sunlight, and collapsed ecosystems, erasing the dinosaurs that had ruled Earth for millions of years. A quiet reminder that even in the gentle hum of the cosmos, massive change can spring from the tiniest of places. As you continue drifting through this region, watching rocks ranging from a few inches to hundreds of kilometers across, you begin to understand that each fragment carries a story. Some are leftovers from the time planets were forming. Some are shards from ancient impacts. Some, nudged over millennia, slip into orbits that bring them close to Earth. These are called near-Earth objects, NEOs. NEOs aren't always dangerous. Many pass Earth safely, like silent visitors gliding by before disappearing again. But even a small object, only 40 meters wide, shorter than a skyscraper, could cause severe destruction if it struck a city. These truths aren't meant to worry you, but to remind you that the universe moves according to laws both gentle and strict, and every stone has a part in the story. Despite its reputation, this region holds a strange, peaceful beauty. There are no constant collisions, no chaos like you might imagine. The spaces between objects are vast, so wide that they almost never touch. Most of the time, the asteroid belt feels like a wide, quiet field where stones drift slowly, gracefully, like fish in a dark, cosmic ocean. And as you float among these silent travelers, You feel as though you're wandering through an ancient museum where everything belongs to a distant past. In this stillness, the sun still casts its soft golden light. It sweeps slowly across the rocks, creating long shadows that drift along their curved orbits. Together, they form a gentle, calming scene, one that slows your thoughts, lightens your breath, and settles your mind. And then, ahead in the distance, the sunlight begins to reflect more strongly, brighter, clearer, as if hinting at something enormous waiting just beyond. Something massive, powerful, a guardian of the inner solar system. The rhythm of the light carries you forward, soft, unhurried, drawing you closer to where a giant made of gas turns quietly in the dark. As you drift beyond that wide field of ancient rubble, where the oldest remnants of the solar system still rest quietly in the dark, the space ahead suddenly opens up in a strange, almost breathtaking way. The scattered rocks grow fewer, and the emptiness becomes smooth, calm, like the surface of a still lake. And then, as though stepping out of a dense forest into an open meadow, the scene becomes wider, lighter, more peaceful. In this quiet clarity, you sense something approaching. Not small, not fragmented, but whole. A single, enormous presence, gentle yet powerful enough to shape everything around it. Slowly, it emerges from the darkness. A planet many times larger than everything you've passed. Cream, brown, and amber cloud bands wrap around it like soft brushstrokes on a watercolor canvas. Circular storms swirl in deep, even rhythms, like the slow breathing of a giant sleeping in space. At the center of this stormy artwork is a massive ancient cyclone, a great eye of wind that has lasted for centuries. And strangely, from far away, you feel no fear, only calm, a sense of deep, steady strength, as if this planet quietly keeps the entire solar system in order. This is Jupiter. In the soft, dim light, Jupiter looks like a gentle giant. But if you understood what's happening inside, you'd know it's even more than that. Jupiter has no solid surface. It is a vast sphere of gas, spinning gracefully through space, yet its gravity is immense. That gravity is buried within its thick layers of hydrogen and helium, pulling nearby objects into its orbit, holding some, bending the paths of others. This enormous pull makes Jupiter a cosmic shield, a guardian standing at the gate, protecting the smaller inner planets from wandering space debris. If you hovered in space long enough, you'd see countless objects from the outer solar system passing through this region, only to be tugged aside by Jupiter. Wayward comets, massive asteroids, objects large enough to threaten Earth, all of them feel Jupiter's influence. Many are deflected into safe paths. Some are swallowed entirely, sinking into Jupiter's deep, endless atmosphere. Others are flung away like stones tossed by an invisible, colossal hand. Because of this, the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are shielded from many catastrophic impacts. Without Jupiter, Earth might have faced far more extinctions than history records. And thanks to its silent presence, life on Earth has had the chance to grow and endure, undisturbed by too many cosmic disasters. One of the clearest reminders of Jupiter's power came in 1994, when the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, long and massive, fell into Jupiter's gravity well. As it neared, the planet's intense tidal forces tore the comet apart, breaking it into pieces like a string of beads snapping loose. Then, piece by piece, each fragment plunged into Jupiter. Seen from space, the impacts flashed like bright wounds across its massive cloud surface. Each collision released more energy than the most powerful bombs humans have ever created. None of this harmed Jupiter. It continued rotating softly, calmly, like a giant unmoved by a storm of stones. But it showed humanity something unmistakable. Jupiter had taken the blows that otherwise might have struck us. If you continue watching the planet in a relaxed, drifting state, you'll see that its atmosphere is not nearly as quiet as it appears. Long, spiraling storms, winds far stronger than anything on Earth, and rivers of gas moving in perfect bands, all unfold in rhythm. And yet, their movement has a soothing quality. No thunder, no lightning, only rounded clouds spinning smoothly, like ribbons stirred in water. From afar, you can feel the balance Jupiter brings. It is the mediator between the rocky inner worlds and the gaseous giants beyond. It is the pillar holding the system steady. It is the invisible arm stretched outward, shielding the smaller worlds. And though you cannot see gravity itself, you can sense it, like a warm, protective blanket surrounding life with quiet determination. In the stillness of space, Jupiter feels like the slow heartbeat of a great cosmic body. It doesn't need to shine like the sun. It doesn't need a solid surface to prove its presence. It simply exists, steady, enormous, watchful, protecting everything within. As you drift around this colossal world, watching its pale cloud bands curve with its rotation, you feel your thoughts growing softer. Your heartbeat slows, your breath lightens, worries seem to dissolve. And in that moment, you realize that the universe, vast and sometimes intimidating, also holds places of deep reassurance. And Jupiter is one of those places, silent, powerful, and gentle in its own immense way. When you begin to drift beyond the giant's wide domain, the sun's light guides you once more, steady and calm, toward another world that circles the star. A world even larger than many you've seen so far, filled with storms that last for centuries and moons so numerous, they form an entire kingdom of their own. Your journey continues, slowly, softly, like the breath of the universe itself. As you drift away from the steady, powerful gravitational glow of the great gatekeeper, the space ahead unfolds into something softer, like an endless sheet of silk gently stretched across the void. The universe grows deeper, quieter, as though you've stepped into a larger chamber within the cosmic home. Jupiter slowly shrinks behind you, revealing faint arcs of the next orbit, where sunlight arrives more slowly, more delicately, yet still bright enough to paint warm, blended colors across a giant world turning far ahead. And then, as your eyes adjust to the dim shimmer, the largest planet in the entire solar system begins to appear, radiant, swirling like a painting made of a million layers of wind. Its cloud bands resemble wood grain, smooth, curved lines flowing in hues of cream, amber, and deep brown. Everything rotates together in continuous motion, like the visible currents of time itself. But don't let the beauty fool you. Beneath those swirling layers lies immense energy, active, dynamic, and alive in its own way. This is a place where nothing is still, where everything moves in a vast, fluid rhythm, giving you the strange sensation of hearing the slow, steady breath of a giant creature. This planet spins with incredible speed. A full day, one complete rotation, lasts less than 10 hours. Compared to Earth's rotation, imagine this enormous world whirling like a wheel caught in a powerful gust, turning rapidly, yet never disrupting the structure of its delicate cloud bands. That rapid spin shapes its atmosphere into sharp, distinct zones, bands of light and dark that separate the currents of its gas. But the rotation isn't the most astonishing thing. What surprises scientists most is the energy rising from deep inside the planet. Unlike rocky planets that rely on the sun for warmth, this gas giant emits more heat than it receives. Inside, materials sink, compress, and heat up under intense gravity, generating warmth from within. This constant motion ensures the atmosphere is never calm. Storms form endlessly. Vast swirling systems, larger than Earth itself, twist and churn for centuries without fading. And among all these weather patterns lies a feature so iconic it feels almost mythical: the Great Red Spot. If you let your gaze drift across the planet, you'll see it. An enormous red-orange whirl, like an ancient eye staring out into space. But this spot is no small storm. It is a hurricane 3 times the size of Earth, so wide that if you placed our planet inside it, it would simply vanish into the swirl. And the most extraordinary part: this storm has lasted for more than 300 years, perhaps even longer. Winds within it roar with unimaginable force, faster than any storm Earth has ever recorded. Yet from afar, it looks gentle, slow, graceful, like the deep voice of a giant humming quietly in its sleep. Strangely, despite all this intensity, the planet brings a sense of peace. Perhaps it's because its size is so vast that every motion feels slower in your mind. Or maybe because its cloud bands are soft, like colors mixed from wind and water. As you float near its gaseous surface, you'll see the clouds drift like endless ribbons of silk, twisting gently along the swirling currents. No solid ground, no fixed surface, just a boundless sea of gas, so deep that sunlight can pierce only a few layers before fading into the planet's dark belly. And that is part of its charm. No other world resembles this one. No rocky planet can compare with its size, its storms, its unending patterns. Jupiter feels like a vast heart beating slowly in the dark, immense, powerful, yet tender in its own quiet way, as though it understands its role within the solar system. It does not boast. It does not shout. It simply radiates energy, shapes weather systems, spins at impossible speeds, and shields the inner worlds from wandering cosmic debris. If you float a little longer, sensing the invisible wind of its rotation brushing past your thoughts, you'll begin to notice points of light circling the giant. Its moons, large and small, orbiting it like a loyal kingdom. Some are so big they could be planets themselves if they weren't bound to their enormous master. Others are tiny, glimmering like drifting stones. All of them move around the gas giant, like a silent procession in the dark. And in that moment, you feel small, but deeply safe. The presence of this immense world brings a sense of order to the cosmos. A feeling that some forces are so grand, so steady, that they keep everything in its rightful place. And the longer you observe, the more its rapid spin seems to slow in your mind, until it feels like your own breath is synchronized with that of a gentle, sleeping giant. Then, softly, the light begins to guide you onward. The pale orange bands shrink into the distance, pulled back into the vastness of space like a fading stroke of color. Ahead, a gentle moon glows faintly, and a fiery world waits, one of Jupiter's many companions, each holding its own secrets, some with hidden oceans beneath thick ice, others with volcanic landscapes that burn with incredible heat. And so the journey continues, slow and serene, like the breath of the universe wrapped around you. As you drift away from the swirling cloud bands of the giant gas world, letting the great red spot fade in your memory like an ancient storm dissolving quietly into night. The space ahead reveals a completely different sight. No more tightly wound cloud belts. No more massive spirals of storm and pressure. Only small points of light floating beside the towering planet, like delicate lanterns circling a sleeping castle. They appear slowly, each glow with its own subtle character, but two of them shine brighter than all the rest, as if inviting you closer, asking you to listen to their stories. These are Io and Europa, Jupiter's two most famous moons, two tiny worlds so alive that even the space around them seems to vibrate with motion. As you approach, Io reveals itself first. From afar, it looks like a small orb splashed with patches of yellow, orange, and deep red, colors blending chaotically like strokes of molten paint. But the closer you drift, the more you can feel the feverish energy beneath its surface. Io is not a quiet world. It is a world of fire, even though it lies so far from the sun that its surface is colder than Earth's most silent deserts. But Io's fire does not come from sunlight. It comes from force. Jupiter's vast gravitational pull stretches and squeezes this tiny moon constantly, like a soft sphere being pulled apart and pressed back together over and over. That relentless flexing generates heat from within, so much heat that it melts rock, turning Io into the most volcanically active world in the entire solar system. More than 400 volcanoes flare open again and again, throwing fountains of glowing material dozens, even hundreds, of miles into the air. If you could look closely, you would witness a sight both fierce and mesmerizing. Plumes of sulfur rising like amber smoke, then freezing mid-fall into sulfur snow that settles gently back down. Each eruption redraws the landscape. Each burst paints a new stroke on Io's surface, a surface that never stays the same for long. Io is a living record of a world shaped endlessly by gravity, pressure, and time. Leaving Io, Jupiter's soft reflected light draws you toward the opposite side, toward a world that is everything Io is not. If Io is a hot, pounding heartbeat, Europa is a slow breath, cold, deep, and quiet, like an ocean asleep under starlight. From afar, Europa looks like a flawless sphere of ice, white, smooth, glowing faintly as it reflects Jupiter's light like glass under moonshine. But as you float closer, you begin to see the long, thin veins running across its surface, rust-colored lines stretching like cracks on a giant frozen lake. These fractures are the evidence of what lies beneath, and that is where Europa's wonder begins. Beneath this icy shell lies a global ocean, liquid water, deeper and wider than all of Earth's oceans combined. An ocean that exists without sunlight, kept warm by the same tidal forces that torment Io. No one knows what that ocean looks like. But scientists believe that in its darkest depths, where tidal heating generates enough warmth, there may be hydrothermal vents, like the ones on Earth's seafloor, where life first found its foothold. Tiny organisms here do not rely on sunlight. They live off chemical energy, thriving in complete darkness. And when you imagine something similar happening on Europa, you feel the moon whisper softly, persistently, "Maybe we are not alone." Europa may be one of the most promising places in the solar system to harbor life. Not complex life, but small, resilient organisms adapted to eternal darkness, sheltering in endless waters beneath the ice. That possibility makes your journey slow a little, as if the universe itself asks you to pause, to appreciate the subtlety beneath this fragile shell. If you observe Europa's surface more closely, you'll notice patches of ice that look broken and refrozen, like drifting shards on a frozen lake. This tells us Europa's surface is young, constantly renewed by movements underneath. like a door gently opening and closing with the breath of the ocean below. And while Io flings fire into space, Europa keeps everything hidden, deep, quiet, and secret. A world of luminous darkness, of imprisoned oceans, of unanswered questions stretching across decades of study. Drifting away now, you watch both moons shrink again, two small lights circling their sleeping giant. And you feel the delicate balance of the cosmos. One world of fire, one world of ice moving together in a tidal dance billions of years old. Then, as the light carries you farther, across the wide space above Jupiter's curling cloud bands, you find yourself gliding toward a world of gold. A world soft and elegant, with rings as thin as floating veils of mist. A world so graceful that everything in your journey seems to slow, simply to avoid disturbing its quiet beauty. As the two moons shrink behind you, sinking back into the tidal embrace of the giant gas world, the space ahead opens again, as if another cosmic doorway has quietly swung wide. The faint sunlight glints off distant grains of ice, scattering a soft silver glow that hangs in the cold like morning mist. You no longer see Io's fiery fountains or Europa's delicate fractures of rust-colored ice. Instead, something softer, more curved, more elegant begins to reveal itself. A broad, thin halo appears, so fine it looks like a silk ribbon suspended in the dark. This is the moment you realize you're approaching a world whose beauty feels so profound it could make the universe pause just to admire it. A planet not only massive, not only powerful, but adorned with a celestial piece of jewelry so delicate it seems it could dissolve at a touch, yet so vast it stretches across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. This is Saturn. As your gaze drifts closer, the planet seems to rotate gently, as if turning to show you its most graceful angle. Saturn's colors are soft, not bold like Jupiter's swirling stripes. There are no sharply defined bands, no violent contrasts. Just a pale, buttery yellow, like a sphere wrapped in a thin layer of quiet fog, spinning slowly in the faint sunlight. But the true enchantment lies in the rings. So thin they seem almost imaginary, so wide they feel immeasurable. They look fragile, like they could melt if you breathed on them. Yet they span a space so large it defies any sense of scale. Saturn's rings are not solid disks, as ancient imaginations once believed. They are made of billions of pieces of ice and rock, some as small as grains of dust, others as large as buildings. When sunlight reaches them, each fragment reflects its light differently, creating bands of brightness and shadow that curve softly around the planet, like the breath of a dancer spiraling across a cosmic stage. If you were to drift among those rings, you wouldn't find a dense wall of glittering ice. You'd find a vast expanse where particles float far apart, each one gliding gently in its own orbit. The crystalline fragments shimmer like a school of light drifting slowly through space. Together, they form a quiet optical symphony, silent, yet filled with emotion. And as your imagination sinks deeper, you begin to sense the story behind these rings. Many scientists believe they may be the remains of an icy moon that once circled Saturn millions of years ago. One day, perhaps, that moon wandered too close, crossing the Roche limit, where tidal forces become so strong they can pull a moon apart particle by particle. There was likely no explosion, no dramatic burst of light, just a slow, cold unraveling, gravity methodically pulling the moon into fragments until it was no longer whole. Those fragments spread outward, settling into a ring, then into many rings, until they formed the layered halo you see today. Every shard of ice was once part of a world, a single moon, now transformed into the most breathtaking crown in the solar system. But beauty is not Saturn's only wonder. Within the second largest planet lies a gentle but persistent engine of heat. Like its giant sibling Jupiter, Saturn emits more energy than it receives from the Sun. But here, the mechanism is different. Deep inside, droplets of liquid helium slowly sink through the denser layers, like metallic rain falling through the depths of space. As they fall, they create friction, generating warmth that rises upward and stirs the atmosphere. That heat powers subtle motions in Saturn's thick air, long, soft bands of wind, not as fierce as Jupiter's, but mesmerizing in their own way. You can see faint streaks drifting around the planet, smooth and elegant, like ribbons of silk caught in a gentle, slow breeze. From a distance, watching Saturn rotate within its rings, the first feeling you get is not its size, though it is immense. It is grace. Pure, quiet grace. In a universe full of ancient echoes and distant shadows, Saturn feels like a glowing lantern, its icy halo scattering soft light, making the space around it gentler than anywhere else. If you hover near the edge of the rings, you might sense a kind of surreal calm. No sound, no collision. Only the slow drift of icy fragments, like leaves falling in slow motion onto a frozen lake. There is no rush here, no urgency, just silence, beautiful and complete, until your mind feels like it could dissolve into it. And when you look around, you'll see Saturn's moons floating beyond the rings like tiny guardians. Some have strange, sculpted shapes, as though carved by hand. Some spew plumes of icy vapor into space from hidden oceans below. Some are so small they resemble drifting stones. Together, they form a vast, artistic kingdom orbiting their golden giant. Gradually, Saturn becomes a sight you don't want to look away from. It is powerful, yet gentle, immense, yet delicate, an impossible combination that settles into a slow, peaceful rhythm. And if you allow yourself to relax just a little more, you might feel as though you're hearing the universe breathe softly through the rings. Then, as the pale golden planet slowly fades behind you, the sun's distant light gently guides you onward. Ahead waits another world, one moon wrapped in a thick atmosphere, and another tiny moon that sprays water into space like the thin mist of a dream. The journey is far from over, and the universe remains endlessly patient with you as the pale golden planet and its veil-thin rings slip gently into the darkness behind you. The sun's faint glow continues guiding you outward, not in a straight line, but in a soft curve, like a quiet breeze bending through starlight. It carries you past drifting shards of ice that shimmer with weak reflections, then through the subtle emptiness between orbits. The silence becomes so deep, you almost imagine hearing the faintest motion of frozen particles at the edge of Saturn's rings. And then, within that quiet, you notice two small points of light beginning to emerge. Not bright, not sharp, but familiar, like whispered stories hidden in the dark. These are Saturn's two famous icy moons, Triton and Enceladus. Two small worlds in the golden giant's vast kingdom, yet each holding secrets that make humans dream of life far beyond Earth. The light carries you first toward Triton, a moon not cold and empty like simple frozen rock, but a world with a true atmosphere, thick and hazy and golden, like a translucent scarf draped gently over an entire planet. Triton is the only moon in the solar system with an atmosphere thicker than Earth's. Floating above its amber clouds, you can feel the depth of it, as if beneath that mist lies a world breathing slowly in its sleep. Titan's atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, like Earth's, but mixed with methane, which gives the air its warm golden tint, soft, muted, like an eternal autumn afternoon. You won't see blue oceans or brown land here. Instead, Titan offers something stranger, more wondrous: vast lakes and seas of liquid methane stretching across the surface like dark, silent reservoirs in the frozen night. These lakes are not water. Titan is far too cold for water to flow. Instead, methane, one of the main components of natural gas on Earth, behaves like Earth's water cycle here. It rains, it pools, it gathers into seas. Imagine gentle methane rain falling onto Titan's frost-covered ground. No sound, no lightning, only the soft, endless descent of cold droplets melting into darkness. Some seas, like Kraken Mare, are so large that from orbit, you could see the curve of their boundaries glimmer as Titan's weak light reflects off the liquid surface. Titan feels like a strange, ancient echo of Earth, colder, dimmer, quieter, yet carrying familiar ingredients: an atmosphere, rain, lakes, rivers, landscapes, a world both alien and intimate, like a half-remembered dream. Leaving Titan, the light guides you to a much smaller world, but one holding a wonder so profound that humanity can't look away. Enceladus. Barely 500 kilometers wide, tiny enough to fit inside a large asteroid, yet dazzling like a newly polished sphere of ice. Enceladus glows white and pure, reflecting sunlight so cleanly it appears like a drifting pearl in space. But Enceladus's magic is not on the surface. It bursts from its south pole. There, scientists discovered towering geysers, massive fountains of water vapor and ice, erupting hundreds of kilometers into space. Seen from afar, these plumes resemble thin, white mist shooting upward, delicate as breath, yet powerful enough to escape the moon's gravity. And these plumes are not just water. They contain liquid water droplets, nitrogen, methane, and organic molecules, the simple but essential building blocks of life. The particles that escape do not simply vanish. They drift outward and become part of Saturn's E-ring, turning Enceladus into a quiet artist, painting a soft halo around its parent planet. If Titan makes you ponder weather and methane seas, Enceladus opens the door to the biggest question humans have ever asked. Could there be life beneath its ice? Because like Europa, Enceladus hides a global ocean of liquid water under its icy crust, kept warm by Saturn's tidal forces. Heat, water, minerals, organic molecules, every essential component of life as we know it exists here. Beneath the ice, warm water may swirl around hydrothermal vents, places where life on Earth could begin without sunlight. Maybe tiny organisms drift there, feeding on chemical energy. Maybe something primitive moves slowly in the eternal dark. Maybe nothing at all. But the thought that an ancient ocean might be stirring in the shadows is enough to slow your mind, soften your breath, and make space for wonder. And so within the vast stillness of space, Titan and Enceladus continue their orbits, each whispering something different. Titan murmurs with the deep, muted breath of its golden atmosphere. Enceladus sings with the pure, crystalline note of icy water rising into the dark. As you drift farther away, you watch their surfaces glow faintly with Saturn's reflected light. Then slowly, both moons shrink into tiny sparks, folding back into the grand kingdom of rings and icy companions. But the journey is far from over. The light draws you onward, toward worlds tilted on their side, worlds wrapped in turquoise haze, worlds so cold and distant that blue becomes the dominant color of their skies. New mysteries are beginning to open before you, As Titan and Enceladus fade into the faint glow surrounding Saturn, you can feel a subtle shift stirring through space. It's as if the universe is changing its palette, from the planet's warm, honey-colored light to something cooler, bluer, and quieter. The sun now appears only as a thin, distant whisper of brightness, as pale as a breath drifting from far away. Yet even in its weakness, it still manages to paint soft curves along the next set of worlds, wrapping everything in a gentle wash of blue mist that never quite melts. And then, as you drift into this region where distance stretches wide and silence deepens, a planet begins to emerge, slowly, quietly. It does not dazzle. It does not shout for attention. It doesn't wear glittering rings or swirl with dramatic storms. Instead, it reveals itself like a turquoise gem, pure, soft, cold, tilted as if resting on an invisible sheet of glass. The sight is so still, so understated, that your mind pauses for a moment, as though this world is intentionally avoiding your direct gaze. This is Uranus. Unlike any planet you've passed so far, Uranus carries the beauty of deep silence, of great distance, of something just slightly outside the usual rules. And the first thing that astonishes you is not its color, but its tilt. The planet is tipped almost completely onto its side, about 98 degrees, practically horizontal, as if someone gently nudged it until the entire world simply rolled over and stayed there, resting. Its poles do not sit at the top and bottom. They sit along the sides. Its equator stands upright, perpendicular to the sun's light. This creates seasons so long, they strain the human imagination. Over 40 years of sunlight for one hemisphere, then more than 40 years of darkness. But here, so far from warmth, so far from urgency, these endless seasons feel like part of a slow, peaceful rhythm the universe has been humming for ages. This strange tilt didn't simply happen. Scientists believe that long ago, when the solar system was young, a massive collision took place. Perhaps a protoplanet, something almost as large as Earth, struck Uranus hard enough to tip it sideways, like a boat caught by a colossal wave. And since that moment, the planet has remained leaning, carrying that ancient scar in the form of its eternal sideways spin. If you let your gaze wander across its atmosphere, you won't find bold stripes like Jupiter's, nor the soft golden bands of Saturn. Instead, Uranus offers simplicity, a smooth, serene blue, quiet as velvet, barely revealing any visible motion. Under that calm exterior lies a mixture of methane, hydrogen, and helium, giving it the cool blue tone of polar ice under moonlight. But that serene surface hides a deeper truth. Uranus is the coldest planet in the solar system. Temperatures can plunge to 224 degrees Celsius, so cold that the very idea of movement seems to shiver and slow. Some scientists believe that the ancient impact may have released the planet's internal heat, like the hollow ring of a drum after a heavy strike, leaving Uranus with only a faint whisper of warmth. If you imagine hovering near it, the first sensation would be absolute stillness. No dramatic storms, no roaring winds you can picture, no giant spots or swirling tempests, only a transparent kind of cold, soft, pure, like the quiet shine of melting ice. And yet, deep beneath that peaceful surface, there are winds and currents, hidden storms and flowing bands, moving secretly, without spectacle, as if the planet prefers to keep its mysteries tucked away. From certain angles, you can glimpse its rings, thin, dark, and subtle, far dimmer than Saturn's. They look like charcoal strokes drawn close to the planet's turquoise glow, adding a gentle trace of melancholy, like quiet lines in an old journal. And as you drift around Uranus, circling once through its faint, icy light, you begin to understand the feeling of true distance. The sun here is nothing more than a pale lantern. Its warmth barely registers. Light arrives like a soft suggestion rather than a touch. But it's this very remoteness that makes Uranus feel strangely tender. Unhurried, unshowy, unbothered. A great world leaning quietly on its side, taking 84 long Earth years to complete a single orbit. If you close your eyes, it becomes easy to imagine Uranus as someone reclining gently on a pillow, saying nothing, breathing softly, content to simply exist. And when you slowly drift away, letting its calm blue fade into the black behind you, you realize that even this profound stillness is only a pause in the journey. Far ahead, in deeper shades of navy blue, you begin to sense the presence of another world, stronger, more dynamic, stirred by winds fiercer than any known in the solar system. A world richer in color, more powerful in motion, yet still carrying the same icy beauty of the outer frontier. A deep blue planet, where the fastest winds in the universe circle endlessly. A world waiting for you, if you're willing to drift just a little farther. As the gentle blue of the world you just left slowly fades into the dark, and its peaceful tilted form disappears behind you, the sunlight becomes almost nothing. A thin breath of illumination so faint, it feels like it could dissolve at the slightest touch. And yet, within that fading light, another color begins to rise. Deeper, stronger, colder. A blue that touches your vision like the midnight ocean. Not the pale, airy blue of Uranus, but a richer, ink-dark shade, carrying a quiet power that seems to pulse beneath its stillness. In the dim outskirts of space, farther than human eyes were ever meant to wander, a slow, majestic rotation becomes visible. A planet at the boundary of the solar system, where distance stretches so far that time itself seems to slow. The cold here is so intense you might imagine everything has long since fallen asleep, and yet the world ahead of you is moving in a way no one would expect. This is Neptune, the wind king of the distant dark. If Uranus feels like a silent world lying at rest, then Neptune is a world that breathes deeply, not visibly, but from somewhere far beneath its layered atmosphere. Its deep blue looks like a vast liquid ocean filled with hidden energy. As you drift closer, you begin to see faint swirls, shifting bands of light and shadow, as if unseen currents are constantly running beneath the surface. But what defines this world, what makes it extraordinary, are its winds. The fastest winds in the entire solar system. On Neptune, winds can reach over 2,000 kilometers per hour, moving faster than the speed of sound. They stretch into long, ribbon-like streams of blue, pulled tight across the atmosphere. From a distance, they appear soft, like simple brush strokes. But behind that softness is a force powerful enough to tear apart anything solid, if anything solid could survive here at all. And strangely, these winds don't come from the sun. This far from the center, sunlight is nothing more than a faint sigh, too weak to warm an atmosphere. Yet Neptune still stirs with internal heat. Scientists are not sure why. Perhaps shrinking materials in the planet's core, perhaps leftover warmth from its formation, or friction deep within. But because of that heat, Neptune's skies are alive, dynamic, fierce, filled with storms. If you watch the planet's dark navy surface, you'll notice large, shadowy spots, fleeting storm systems known as Great Dark Spots, first recorded by Voyager 2 in 1989. Unlike Jupiter's enduring Great Red Spot, Neptune's storms appear and vanish, sometimes shifting location or dissolving completely. They are like brief windows into the deeper atmosphere, where pressure and roaring winds swirl together in great, silent whirlpools. And hidden within this deep blue world is a phenomenon that feels almost like a myth: the possibility of diamond rain. Under extreme internal pressure, methane molecules may split apart, allowing carbon atoms to compress into crystalline diamond. Imagine a storm in total darkness, not of raindrops, but of glittering shards falling endlessly through thick blue-black clouds. Each collision of diamond against diamond might spark tiny flashes of pale light, like underwater lightning, soft and cold. If you let your thoughts drift above Neptune, it feels as though you're hovering over an endless sea, not of water, but of winds. A great ocean of motion, swirling and cycling through layers. Some winds rush in one direction, others sweep the opposite way, creating parallel currents like the quiet rips beneath a stormy tide. And yet, despite all this power, Neptune doesn't feel violent. Its rhythm is steady enough that it feels like listening to the deep breathing of a hidden ocean. The winds may be furious, but their elegance softens them. The storms may be immense, but from afar, they glide like ink drifting through water. From a greater distance, you can see its small moons circling it, glowing softly like lanterns floating in a frozen midnight sea. The largest of them, Triton, awaits you in the future of your journey. But for now, it lingers as a pale point of light moving slowly around the planet's dark blue mass. Its presence keeps Neptune from feeling entirely alone, even here at the outer frontier where everything seems on the edge of eternal sleep. And in this silence, this quiet so vast it seems to absorb every thought, you might expect loneliness. But Neptune brings something else entirely: a calm, a strange peace. Maybe it's the smoothness of its color, maybe the graceful way its storms move, or maybe because it resembles an ocean breathing in the longest night of the universe, where even the fiercest energy becomes gentle when viewed from afar. As the deep blue world slowly shrinks behind you, you sense that your journey is brushing against the outer limits of the solar system you've known. But it isn't finished yet. Beyond Neptune, farther still, in a darkness so deep that even sunlight hesitates, lie more worlds. Smaller, colder, older, drifting like fragments of ancient memories left over from the solar system's dawn. And the light guides you onward once more, slowly, softly, into a gallery of the oldest secrets the universe has kept. As the deep cobalt blue of that swirling, wind-carved world slowly drifts behind you, you can still feel the echo of its colossal storms lingering in your imagination, like faint ripples that haven't quite faded away. But the sun's dim light, now nothing more than a distant whisper, continues to guide you toward the outer edge of Neptune's realm. And right there, on that quiet border, another faint glow begins to pull itself out of the endless dark. It isn't large like its planet. It doesn't roar with winds or storms. Yet it draws your attention with a cold, soft, dreamlike beauty. Something delicate, something secret, like a story the universe has never fully told. This is Triton. As you drift closer, Triton doesn't greet you with brightness or swirling clouds. It appears instead like a rounded pearl of ice, wrapped in pale, moonlit frost that glides across its surface like light sliding over a frozen lake. From a little nearer, you can see its surface is strangely smooth, not perfectly polished, but a mixture of glassy planes and gentle fractures, like quiet etchings made by time itself. What makes Triton more unusual than almost any moon in the solar system is the way it moves. While most moons orbit in the same direction their planet spins, Triton travels backward against Neptune's rotation, as though it arrived from somewhere else, as though it wasn't born here. Scientists believe Triton was once a world from the Kuiper Belt, the far-off frontier filled with icy bodies wandering in the dark. Long ago, it passed too near Neptune, and the giant planet's gravity captured it, pulled it into orbit, and turned it into the world you see now. It's easy to imagine it then. A drifting sail caught in a midnight sea, pulled into the eye of a cosmic storm, and from that moment on, forever set on a new path. Steady, slow, but never quite matching the worlds native to this place. Triton's surface glows in pale shades of white and rose, created by frozen nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. The little sunlight that reaches this distant world reflects off the ice in a powdery pastel shimmer, soft, fragile, quiet. But if you drift lower, you'll feel it immediately. Triton is not a sleeping world. It breathes with geological life, even here at the outermost cold of the solar system. And that life reveals itself through cryovolcanoes, ice volcanoes. But they don't erupt with glowing red rock like Io. Triton's volcanoes release plumes of liquid nitrogen and fine icy dust, shooting hundreds of meters, sometimes kilometers, into the air. Imagine a fountain of cold vapor lifting into the sky, not with an explosion, but with the silent, frozen exhale of evaporating ice. The falling particles don't simply drift back down. Triton's faint winds carry them far across the landscape, painting long streaks over the surface. These streaks can stretch for dozens or even hundreds of kilometers, soft brushstrokes marking the activity beneath the moon's thick crust, where heat pockets keep nitrogen melted just enough to move. If you skim above Triton's surface, you'll notice gentle rises and dips, as if the ground itself is breathing, slowly, deeply, quietly. There are no trees, no rocks, no liquid water like Earth's, but there is something alive in another way. The motion of ice, the push of pressure, the whisper of frozen gas working its way upward. Triton's solitude is also part of its beauty. It lies farther out than most worlds, where sunlight falls too weakly to bring color, and warmth never arrives to spark dramatic storms. Instead, this moon holds the purity of untouched ancient ice, still pristine after billions of silent years. One of Triton's strangest features is its melon-skin terrain. Clusters of rounded bumps formed when nitrogen ice beneath the surface slowly evaporates, causing the ground to puff up and collapse in soft, circular patterns. It is unlike any landscape found anywhere else in the solar system. If you imagine walking on such a surface, though a human body could never survive here, you would feel as though you were stepping across a dream of frost. Every footstep light, every breath turning instantly to mist. Beneath that frozen layer could lie a hidden ocean or pockets of melted water, warm enough under high pressure for liquid to exist, feeding the eruptions that carve and sculpt Triton's surface. Here, in the silence of this remote frontier, Triton circles Neptune slowly, like a great snowflake drifting around a deep blue storm. And as you begin to drift away, its shape shrinks to a soft, pale dot beside the dark azure of its planet. Yet the feeling it leaves behind remains. That living cold, those silent plumes disappearing into the dark. That story of a world captured from a faraway place. And as the light carries you farther still, you understand that these worlds are not an ending, but the final steps leading you toward the very edge of the solar system, where smaller, older, lonelier objects drift through space like fading memories from the sun's distant youth. Ahead of you, the darkness opens wide, inviting you toward the last frontier, where everything grows sparse, and the oldest stories the sun has ever kept are waiting just beyond the next breath of light. As Triton's faint, frosted silhouette shrinks behind you, dissolving into the deep blue of the planet it circles, you feel as though you've just drifted away from a tiny story preserved in ice. But the space ahead of you keeps opening wider, growing darker and quieter with every passing moment. By now, sunlight is so weak it barely exists, more an idea than a presence. A thin thread connecting you to the place where this journey began, but no longer bright enough to touch the worlds ahead with its familiar golden glow. Yet even as the light fades, the journey does not grow dim. A different kind of beauty emerges out here. The beauty of ancient things, untouched things, fragments of frozen matter carrying memories from when the solar system was still young. As you drift beyond Neptune's influence, you can feel yourself entering an entirely new realm. A realm where light is no longer the main storyteller. Here, the storyteller is time. Time on a scale far larger than anything you've ever imagined. And at this quiet border, where even Neptune's winds fall silent, you begin to see the first scattered shapes, small, cold, distant, yet familiar in the way old stones feel familiar inside a museum. This is the Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt is like a vast, thin, icy disk lying beyond Neptune's orbit, stretching across billions of kilometers. Seen from afar, it isn't a bright ring like Saturn's. Instead, it's made of countless tiny frozen bodies, very small, very scattered, yet present everywhere. They drift slowly through the dark, like petals of ice suspended in a still life painting. The objects here are not new. They are ancient remnants, raw pieces of the early solar system that never grew into planets because they lacked enough gravity. They are the untouched leftovers of creation, preserving the chemistry and structure of a time when the sun was still wrapped in a swirling cloud of dust. Scientists call this region a cosmic museum because it holds the artifacts of our star's earliest days. Among these icy fragments are the larger worlds, the dwarf planets. You might see the faint outline of Pluto, drifting slowly like a pale, frosted ember. Haumea, stretched and elongated by its rapid rotation. Makemake, round and dim like a stone covered in frozen mist. And Eris, nearly the size of Pluto, gliding like a giant, silent block of ice. Even Ceres, though located in the Asteroid belt, belongs to this same family of primordial relics. These worlds are quiet. They do not roar with storms like the giants. They do not carry oceans like Europa, or erupt with towering ice plumes like Enceladus or Triton. They sit almost motionless, so still that time itself seems unable to leave a scratch on them. And yet, that stillness is exactly what makes them extraordinary. Like gemstones left unpolished, holding the original shape the universe carved for them billions of years ago. As you drift farther outward, the Kuiper Belt thins. The objects become fewer, the darkness deeper, the cold sharper. And then you feel yourself approaching a region few spacecraft have ever reached, a place not shaped like a disk, but like a cloud, so vast that no word quite captures its size. You are entering the Oort Cloud. The Oort Cloud is not someplace you can truly see. It is too wide, too faint, too distant for sunlight to illuminate clearly. Instead, you sense it. A region where, now and then, a tiny object catches the faint starlight, glowing softly like dust touched by moonlight. It feels as though you're drifting through the powdered chalk of night, sparse, gentle, but full of ancient beauty. No one knows exactly how far the Oort Cloud extends, but some estimates say it may reach 1/4 of the way to the nearest star. The long-period comets, those that take thousands or even millions of years to return to the Sun, are born here. They are icy wanderers, sleeping for eons until a slight gravitational nudge sends them plunging inward, back toward the warmth of the solar system. When they return, they carry with them the frozen history of this distant frontier, written into their layered ice. As you stand here in imagination, surrounded by the Oort Cloud, it feels like drifting inside the memory of the solar system. The objects around you are not planets or moons. They are old pages, written in ice and shadow. And in this deep stillness, a gentle thought rises, quiet, soft as smoke. What will become of the solar system's future? You remember almost reluctantly that the Sun is a star, a fire with a lifespan. In about 5 billion years, that fire will change. The Sun will swell into a red giant, large enough to swallow Mercury, Venus, and possibly Earth. Its soft yellow glow will turn into a deep, burning red, heating the inner worlds until they crumble into ash. But don't let your breath tighten, because this moment will not be a catastrophe in the quiet language of space. It will be part of the natural cycle of stars, a breath, but measured in billions of years. When the Sun becomes a red giant, far-off regions like the Oort Cloud will endure. Somewhere out here, these frozen comets may witness everything, silent, ancient observers watching the life cycle of a star unfold across unimaginable time. And finally, as you drift back from the edge, looking over the distance you have traveled, from the Sun's warm glow all the way to the faintest outlines of the Oort Cloud, you realize you have journeyed through the entire lifespan of a star system. A long, slow, gentle voyage through the layers of cosmic memory, like a bedtime story whispered across billions of years. And now, the sky is quiet. The journey closes softly, but in that quiet, you know this story will continue. Every time you look up at the stars, as the last faint objects of the Oort Cloud fade behind you, as the faraway darkness grows too wide to tell where a shard of ice ends and a patch of emptiness begins, you begin to feel yourself drifting beyond the boundaries of the solar system you once knew. This is no longer the realm of planets. No more icy moons, no more violent winds, hidden oceans, or quiet plumes stretching into the sky. Only silence remains, a silence older than every story you've just traveled through. Yet inside that silence, all the images from the journey begin to return to you, drifting back one by one like pieces of light quietly floating toward you, closing the story in the softest way. You remember where everything began, the collapsing cloud of dust and gas gathering in the dark, compressing until it became the Sun, the bright, beating heart of the solar system. Around it, the rocky planets formed, solid worlds circling their newborn star like the first warm stones of a very old tale. You remember tiny Mercury, bare and exposed, its enormous iron core pulsing quietly beneath its surface. You remember Venus, wrapped in thick clouds, holding a heat so still and surreal, it felt like time had stopped there. You remember Earth, our blue home, shielded by its magnetic field, shaped by water, and alive in ways no other world has shown us. You remember Mars, red and dry and ancient, still holding memories of rivers that once carved long, quiet valleys. Then you remember the Asteroid Belt, a museum of broken stones resting between two worlds. And the moment Jupiter entered the journey, stepping forward like a silent guardian, pulling dangerous wanderers toward itself so the inner system remained at peace. You remember Jupiter itself, its massive red storm swirling like an ancient spirit, its thick layered clouds moving like folded pages of memory, and the Galilean moons circling it like a small family. Io burning and restless, never catching its breath. Europa quiet as a dream beneath its silver ice, carrying whispers of possible life. From there, the story brought you to elegant Saturn, the world of soft, ribbon-like rings. Then to Triton, wrapped in golden haze where methane rainfall falls as gently as faraway thoughts, and Enceladus, bright as snow, breathing its secrets into space through fountains of water vapor rising like pale exhalations from a hidden sea. Farther still, the pale blue tilt of Uranus opened the next chapter, a world lying sideways, rotating as if it wished to rest for a moment inside the universe. Then the deep blue of Neptune, where winds tear the sky into unseen ribbons, a symphony of raw force carried out in the coldest twilight. And at last you reached Triton, the captured moon, a world of living ice, its nitrogen geysers rising in silence like the soft white smoke of a drifting dream. All of it then led you to the Kuiper Belt, the frozen museum of ancient fragments, where Pluto glides like a small boat through a distant night. And finally, to the Oort Cloud, where comets sleep for millions of years before returning to the light. This journey carried you from the brightest places to the darkest, from the hottest to the coldest, from chaos to deep, ancient stillness, from worlds full of motion to worlds frozen in time. You have crossed them all, following the same slow breath, the same quiet storytelling voice that lulled you gently from one world to another. And now, with everything settling into silence again, with the sun's tiny glow reduced to a dim spark behind you, you suddenly understand that this journey wasn't only a tour of the cosmos, it was also a journey inward. Because as you listened to every world, every moon, every soft whisper of geography and starlight, you let your mind drift away from the noise of everyday life. Each world spoke to you, not urgently, not forcefully, but gently, like a friend who understands what kind of peace you were searching for. The sun reminded you of beginnings and strength. Earth reminded you of home and life. Europa reminded you of hope in the darkest places. Triton reminded you that beauty can take many shapes. Uranus reminded you that even when you tilt, you still turn. Neptune reminded you that not all power is loud. Triton reminded you that sometimes you don't belong where you are, and that this is still okay. And the Kuiper Belt and Oort Cloud reminded you that your memories, your past, and the quiet things sleeping inside you are also meaningful parts of your journey. Now you are returning, not to Earth, but to the most peaceful version of yourself. The sky here is wide enough to hold every worry, every thought, every burden you brought along. The universe never rushes you. It only invites you to drift, slowly, exactly as you have throughout this story. And in this soft quiet, I want to leave you with a wish. A small, gentle wish, as light as a feather landing on still water. May you find joy and calm in your life. May good things come to you naturally, without haste. May you discover soft moments meant only for you, even in a world that can sometimes feel too loud. Thank you for staying until this final moment. Thank you for listening, for letting your mind travel with me across every world, every layer of ice, every wind, every memory of the solar system. Now let your eyes close softly. Let your body loosen, as if you're floating weightlessly in space. No pressure, no gravity, no expectations. Here, you are safe. Here, you deserve rest. Here, you are allowed to fall into a deep, sweet sleep. Good night. I'll meet you again among the stars.